I know, I was like, I better text you right away because, yeah, we got the call today.
First one.
Yeah. So who's going to Vegas?
What's that?
I said, who's going to Vegas? Both of you?
Her and Tori.
Oh, you're not going?
I just went. I think
I know. I bet.
Oh, are we ready? Okay, we're all set to go. We're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, everyone. Any person present who wishes to address the board or raise any questions about public school district matters or governing policies may do so under public participation. No discussion of personnel or individual students is permitted at this time. A limited 3 minutes will be placed on each speaker. Persons who want more time may make arrangements to be placed on a future agenda. As a courtesy, all cell phones should be turned off. The public is also reminded they may provide input on all motions being considered by the board at this meeting. That being said, is there any public comment? All right. No public comment. Correspondence was just what was in the packet. I don't think there was anything. So we're going to move on to district reports. So Mark, facilities.
I don't have anything to add. Are there any questions?
No questions for Mark? All right, thank you. And superintendent's report.
Okay, I'll just go through here and highlight a few things to bring your attention. COVID cases continue to go down in the county. I was hoping to have this week's report prior to the meeting, but that did not get sent out yet. We went almost an entire calendar month without a positive case here at the school. We had one earlier last week. There was a letter that was sent out by the Montana chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. I think most of you probably saw that through MCEL or through MTSBA. Encouraging schools to continue with the masking in compliance with CDC guidance. We have President Biden made part of the federal program with the pharmacies. Sorry, this is throwing me off with it goes up and down. With the pharmacies to make all school employees eligible for COVID-19 vaccinations. So we've worked with the Joint Powers Trust and Osco Drug, and we've got a vaccination clinic set up. The first doses will be next Friday, and then they follow up 28 days following that. So that's the Moderna vaccination. So by the second week of April, all of our staff that want to be vaccinated should be vaccinated. Highlight, one of the things on the families, community stuff that we have going on is the Hope Squad movie night on March 24th. That's a nationwide thing through the Hope Squad. They'll be able to show the movie, and also they'll have a round robin, kind of a speaking bureau there. We are looking at trying to host our students and families that want to come here on campus in this facility with the big screen down, just depending on how many people we get that want to sign up for that. And you can do it from home as well. Been working with Langless and Collaborative Design on a small remodel for the new Boys and Girls Club space. It would divide their space better from ours for security purposes, address some noise concerns down there with the choir room, and help with their fire egress. So the room that we'd been using as our boardroom, they would put a hallway through there on what would be the northmost wall that would go out into the courtyard. So that'd be a fire egress there. Then they'd put doors that could lock from our side going up that ramp there. So there's a few doors that they'd have to move and stuff. So we got them working on that. Couple climate things I want to stress. We had our first state placer in speech and debate, Gwen Cusack, and we talked about that last month, but she's also a national qualifier. And so I don't know if anybody has been ingrained in speech and debate. That national qualifier is pretty amazing because you're competing, it's an all-class competition to get there, so you're competing against the AA schools as well. And so for her to go to nationals first year as a program is pretty amazing. Mr. Erickson has been working on changing up our elementary sports program, so for grades 4, 5, and 6. I was going to have him talk a little bit about that, but I don't see him in here right now. So the idea is that we're going to try and make those more feeder programs, getting our head coaches involved so they start learning the same techniques, terminology, those type of things in 4th grade that they'll use in high school. And then the other bonus is we're going to try and get as many of our students involved to help coach that and teach them a little bit. The old adage goes, if you think you really know something, try and teach it, and then you're going to learn it even better. So we had our first placers at state wrestling. Bella Hernandez placed at the girls' meet that was here, and Bo Contreras placed last week at Miles City for the Class A. Our boys' team actually did fairly well. Out of I think it's 22, 23 schools, I think we finished 15th or 16th. Beat 4 or 5 established programs, as well as East Helena. So for just having freshmen and sophomores, Bo's building a really strong program there. We did have an incident yesterday with our middle school wrestling program. We had someone that was at practice that tested positive for COVID. So today, Dawn and the principals worked real hard to get everybody quarantined on that. So we will have quite a few kids quarantined right now, pretty much the entire middle school wrestling team and a few of the high school wrestlers as well. As you came in, you probably saw that we're set up for the state Class C basketball championships this week. Again, credit goes to Mike. This is our 3rd state championship in 3 different sports that we've hosted this year. And last thing on the activities, if you want to go out afterwards, the the turf is down on the softball field. That was kind of a surprise to us. We met with them on Wednesday. They didn't say anything about it, and the guy showed up Thursday to start putting the turf in, take advantage of the nice stretch of weather we have right now. And then the last item I have there is, is a little bittersweet. You're always happy for the person, but Mrs. Sother has submitted her letter of resignation. She's retiring this year, so I think she's been here 37 years is what she told me total. So that's pretty amazing, and she'll be missed. Any questions for me, trustees?
All right, thank you. We'll move into principals' reports. Mrs. Fox. She started moving, but not quick enough.
Just the positive was the kids getting to come up here and see the high school and experience it. We were walking in the doors and all the high school kids were there, and this one little girl grabs my hand like, oh my God. But it was really cute. They were in awe of this room, and the rock wall was just amazing. So that was really fun. And all our kids came back to school yesterday. So that's exciting. They are exhausted already. And that's all I got.
Questions for Mrs. Fox? All right, thank you. Mr. Kinsey.
Hello. My positive, we had a really good advisory meeting last week, parent advisory meeting, a lot of good ideas, a lot of good concepts came out of it. It's always nice to touch base and get a few more sets of eyes on some of the things that we're doing. And of course, day 2 of full back, and things are already settling down a little bit. Any questions?
No questions, thank you. And Mr. D.
Hello. So my one positive is we had 3 kids qualify for the Math Counts chapter finals. That's pretty huge. So they took 22 from this chapter area that tested in that, and they only take 9 to the state championship finals, I guess, so we want to call it. And having 3 of them for this entire district out of Lockwood was huge. We have the most out of any of the county schools, so we have more than District 2. Missoula had 4, so between us and Missoula, we have the top number of kids going from each state. Or each school. And then just the lunchroom has been going great. Having that expanded space and splitting up half and half are my 2 positives. So, any questions?
No questions, all right. Thank you. Mr. Klasna.
Just a couple things. I want to kind of expound upon Tobin's talking about wrestling. Last year we won 1 match the whole wrestling tournament, and of our 3 qualifiers, and none of them made it to the second day. This year, of our 5 kids that qualified, 4 of them made it to day 2, including winning 12 matches between them. So that's pretty cool to see us do that. And then again, having Bo at the 113. Bo's trying to write his name into the record book here. He scored the very first touchdown in football last year. He scored the very first Lockwood touchdown in the stadium, and now he's our first medalist, so I don't know what else he's going to try and keep going on, but he's doing pretty good for us that way. And then our intervention classes that we've done so far this year, this semester, we're seeing some good success with that, with a couple of our English ones as well as math, and just working to keep those kids on track for graduation and getting that credit recovered right away. It is amazing to watch our math department. It's just so fun to see them, where Mrs. Olson has done a real nice job of just working with Ms. Keekover and Ms. Albertson up there and kind of just leading them through some different things, and they're doing a fantastic job, as well as our English department. Mr. Hill and Mrs. Browning, they're doing a great job. We're really working hard to get our kids on track and staying on track so they don't lose those credits and they can still graduate on time. So any questions?
Are there any questions of the board? And thank you. And we're going to move on to our curriculum.
We're being super proactive today. So highlights from my report. One is I presented you with data about how our students who have been in remote learning performed in Ames Web. And what was interesting is across the board, we saw sort of a negligible effect. Some students got a little bit better, some stayed about the same, but about 70% of our students fell into that group, and about 30% of our students were who we saw who maybe opted for remote learning for a variety of reasons, but didn't perform really well in that avenue. So I think that's informative as we move forward and make decisions, because there may be some context in which remote learning continues to occur. So that'll help us choose there. And then in the general overview of the data K-12, I can say 5%, I can say 4%, but when you look at it, it's, 48 kids who improved their scores. And that's really what we want our teachers to be thinking about, is every single kid, and are they growing, and what does that look like every day? And of course, it's only one data point, and we look at a whole bunch more, but that's kind of the conversation. And then overall, one of the other interesting pieces that came out of the way we're analyzing the data this year is 85% of our students are coming up with matched data, which means we had them in the fall and we had them in the winter. So that would indicate we, at least this year in this climate with the pandemic, are seeing about a 15% transient rate. And as we move forward, we'll sort of know what to expect, if that number is going to be higher or lower in terms of how many kids are coming and going from Lockwood schools where maybe we're not getting really accurate data to point us in the direction of what we need to do. So I think that's really interesting and helpful data, and being new to the community, I don't know what to expect from that data moving forward, but I don't think 15% is a particularly high transiency rate on the offset of our first 2 data points and looking at that. We are gearing up for a lot of professional development as we move into the spring, and being that that's part of my role in the district, I'm really excited about that. So we're doing a lot with Mastery Connect, and we're also doing a lot with long-term planning. So thinking about how can we leverage some of what we've learned into the next 3 years and beyond, about what might have been helpful or insightful or good about what has happened, and doing some planning as we move forward. So that's really exciting. And then 2 big things for the board to know. I provided you, I got to interview students in the classroom, and one of the classrooms I happened to interview some students in was my daughter's classroom. She's in 5th grade here. And I said, I know you all just think I'm Aubrey's mom, but I'm not just hanging out around here all day for fun. I have a job here. So I interviewed 4 of her classmates to get some early feedback about core knowledge language arts, and I interviewed a separate class who's in 3rd grade, and some of what they shared with me just really indicates to me how much they're learning and how rich some of those conversations are that maybe they wouldn't have had before. So I think that has been another really exciting piece. So any questions for me?
No questions. Thank you very much. Very informative report there. All right, we're going to move on to trustee reports. Teachers negotiations is ongoing. We have met 3 times, 4 times. We've gone through a lot of the low-hanging fruit already. Got language stuff is kind of taken care of, and we're moving into the salary insurance, the less fun part of it, I guess. But the way negotiations goes these days, it is a much more comfortable, I think, for all parties. And we get to have discussions and not stand on either side of tables and make it competitive and argumentative. So I think it's going well. And I think our next negotiation is Thursday? Next Tuesday. Yeah, I'm sorry, lost track. It's in my phone. Are there any questions on that? And land lease update. Is that you or Pam?
We met with the attorney today on the lease that was presented to us, and there's a lot of work to be done on it. They've collaborated with a gentleman from the organization that's going to make his changes in it, and hopefully we can, early next week, approve a contract and get this thing moving forward.
And I guess just so everybody, the land lease we're talking about is to build a clinic out front here in the school. So that's what we've been working on for years here. We'll move on to the Montana PEC Day of Advocacy, which is remote.
And that's just a hot link if anybody wants to sign up for that Day of Advocacy. I believe it is
I don't remember. So if anybody wants to do that. And that being said, we're going to move on to items for action, and we'll move into the consent agenda. Are there any objections to the consent agenda? And hearing none, that will be approved.
There were a few names added to both the out-of-district students and some volunteer coaches as well after I first initially sent it out. So,
But they're in the updated form, so. All right, we're going to hire certified staff for 2021.
Mr. Chrisman, do you want to go to the mic and talk a little bit about the staff members that you're recommending for hire tonight? Let Mr. Chrisman get to the mic, so it's.
So we lucked out this year. Last year, we were in a position where we had open special ed jobs in July, and we're in a little bit of a panic. This year, we had excellent candidates interview for a high school position and for a K-5 position, and we've hired both candidates. So we're also going to be reviewing a potential third candidate, which would fill our positions for next year already. So, yeah, it was a really good year this year. So, and we've got quality people. The one teacher for the high school is probably one of the most highly recommended teachers I've ever interviewed. So, we're on a good place this year.
So based on Mr. Chrisman and the hiring committee, I am recommending the hiring of Rachel Williams-Reno and Karenza McManus-Funk as special education teachers for the 2021-22 school year.
All right, are there any questions or comments from the audience? And any questions or comments from the board? I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I move to hire the certified staff as presented.
I'll second it.
So it's a motion from Kat and a second from Joe to hire the certified staff as presented. Got that? Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. 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 And those opposed? And that motion carries. Thanks, Dawn, for getting that done. It's special ed staff is like next to impossible to make happen. So approve early K for the fall of 2021.
Yeah, I guess at this point, I think this recommendation is kind of a no-brainer. I know this was a huge sell when we first started the program, but we've seen the great benefits that we get from it based on the investment we put in there. Hopefully that there's going to be some changes to some of the legislative stuff that it won't be quite as onerous of process to get funding for these kids. But at this point, we don't know exactly what it will look like. We've talked about possibly doing half days versus full days to get some more kids in. But right now, I'd like to approve early kindergarten program for next fall, which will mean that we'll employ one full-time teacher and one full-time paraprofessional in that program.
I move that we approve the early kindergarten program for next year.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion from Pam and a second from Buddy to approve the early K for next year. Is there any questions or comments from the audience? And in seeing none, any questions or comments from the board? Again, this is something we started years ago. It was kind of a dream thing to get going, so it's been great that we've been able to do it. But the legislation does look like they're moving forward on some funding for this, so hopefully that'll happen. All in favor, say aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. All right. And then we have to approve the anticipated enrollment increase for 2021-22, and that's kind of due to our unique circumstances.
Yeah, so want to kind of give you guys a heads up on some of this. There's still some legislation working through the legislature, and one of the issues is with the ESSERS monies that are available to schools. So a lot of school districts have lost, especially large school districts, have lost a lot of enrollment. And so I think what the legislature's worried about is having, instead of, possibly a couple thousand kids that they have to fund next year, having tens of thousands of kids that they have to fund through unanticipated enrollment. And so they're trying to basically put that on hold for this biennium, and that schools would make themselves whole through their ESSERS monies. So that puts us in a unique spot because we're adding 160 kids to our high school next year. And so trying to work with Lance on that, trying to work with OPI on that. This may change as far as where our funding falls. Nevertheless, we have to approve the anticipated enrollment for next fall. So this number on here reflects the 160 eighth graders moving over to the high school. And I think we added 4 or 5 kids that would just anticipated kids coming back from homeschool or whatever it might be where they're at right now. So we're pretty comfortable with that expectation of 384 students in the high school for next year.
Any comments or questions from the audience? Any questions or comments from the board? I will entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve the estimated anticipated enrollment increase for 21-22.
And I'll second.
All right, so it's a motion from Joe and a second from Sylvia to approve the anticipated enrollment increase for 21-22. One more time for questions or comments. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. And then every year we have to, this was a recent law, publish our estimated permissive funds that we're going to put out.
Yeah, so as Tim said, this is something that was put into law a few years ago. I still think that we're awful early to be trying to guess these amounts here in March. Kind of in conjunction with what we've done in the past with this process, and even what we did with the bond, we're going to put out the worst case scenario that would represent the largest tax increase to our voters. And because we can always reduce that. So it's kind of that under promise, over deliver type of mindset. And so with that in mind, we have the maximum that we can put into flexibility, which was a clause where we could match that through the transformational learning grant. It also maximizes our permissive building reserve, which I think last year we opted not to do that. Other than that, the other changes are really just the increase in the mill value, and then the increase to transportation. I mean, right now with transportation, we're really guessing. Obviously, we were going to cut down the number of buses we were going to run this year, was our original plan. And then with COVID hitting, we kept those numbers the same. And then as we get into the school district 2 busing, We only have the responsibility for transporting the students that are seniors next year. Those buses are pretty sparse at this point already. And so, each of those buses costs us $50,000 a year to run. And so we're running them to 2 different schools. So there may be some ways we can save some money with working with First Student, or maybe looking at some other ideas on how to get those seniors into senior high in Skyview. But this increase of 5.8 or 5.18 mils represents what we think would be the worst case scenario. If we continue to run full buses to senior in Skyview, if we continue to have to sanitize the buses, there's some extra fees we're paying this year for sanitation on the buses. So a lot of extra stuff on there. Again, worst case scenario, I'd rather tell people it's going to cost them more and then have it actually cost them less.
Are there any comments or questions from the audience on this? Any comments or questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the estimated permissive funds resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Kat and a second from Sylvia to approve the estimated permissive fund resolution. One more time for the board. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. And then updating policy 1910 is the COVID leave, and we're just extending through the end of the year.
Yeah, so last time we extended it from December 30th to March 31st, but with cases where they're at and the fact that we're back in school full time, if we have somebody that's sick, we really want to encourage them to stay home. So my recommendation is that we extend the availability of that COVID leave for people that have not used it through June 30th.
I move that we update the policy number 1910 to extend COVID leave for our staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's a motion from Pam and a second from Scott to update policy 1910 to extend COVID leave for the staff. Any questions or comments from the audience? Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. And we're changing bus routes due to school changing.
Yeah, so these are really minor changes based on running the routes AM and PM with the full days. Little bit of change there with the kindergarten and first grade going half days. You can see the email there. On Fridays, the AM routes get a little bit of about 4 miles added to them because they have to return back to the bus barn rather than sitting here until they loop again. So we're adding those 4 miles, but we're completely eliminating the afternoon routes on Fridays. And then you can see and these aren't completely new routes, the kindergarten routes. It's really, we had split routes anyway for preschool, for our special ed preschool and stuff. So it's really just the number of kids we have on those routes is quite a bit more now. And so once you guys approve this, then we'll submit it to the county for reimbursement. Obviously, this has been probably the oddest year in the history of my career as far as dealing with transportation and all the changes we've gone through. And again, kudos to Melissa on that.
All right, any questions or comments from the audience?
I move we approve the additional bus routes.
And it.
All right, so it's a motion from Buddy and a second from Kat to approve the additional bus routes as presented. Are any questions or comments from the board? All in favor, say aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. And the last thing is to approve the MOU with the paraprofessionals.
Yeah, Tim referenced it earlier on just how great the working relationship is with the teachers union. I would extend that to the paraprofessional union as well. We just kind of sat down and sent back a few emails back and forth and kind of came up with this solution. And so what they're asking for is a 2-year extension to our current contract. There's 3 levels based on their education. It's the 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, and then a certified teacher. And so we'll add 30, 35, and 40 cents to each of those columns as we go forth each year of this. And then we will also contribute an additional $20 per month for any of those that take the employee's health insurance each of the 2 years. And then we did a little bit of a language change that had to do with when we let them know that we were going to have professional development days and those type of things. It shortened that notice period because sometimes we won't know that we're going to have a speaker until a couple weeks out instead of 3 weeks ahead of time. So Sarah Shug and Carrie Pentoja have been fantastic to work on with this. So.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Any questions or comments from the board? Or a motion?
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with the paraprofessional union as presented.
Second it.
All right, it's a motion from Sylvia and a second from Kat to approve the memorandum of understanding with the paraprofessional as presented. One more time for questions or comments from the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? Is Scott changing his mind? And that motion carries.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, motion from Joe and a second from Buddy to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you all.